Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Take a Sip podcast. We are now on episode 7. I cannot believe that we are finally on episode 7. We've been pre-filming this series for you guys for a couple weeks now, so I'm so excited for you guys to see everything that we have in store for you guys. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Today, I have a very, very special guest that I met a couple years ago, maybe like 2 years ago, via social media. This is Gabriella, MC.
Hi, everyone.
I'm going to let her go ahead and take the floor and introduce herself. But before, in true Take a Sip podcast form,
Yes, girl.
she brought me some of her coffee from Postres Cafe. This is her cafe, and this is what I will be taking a sip on because it is 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. I do not have time to be drinking. I have to work. You have to work.
Yes.
We have to get things done. So, cheers. Take a sip.
And I already had coffee, so.
Girl, this is my second
Water
dose, so let's get it. All right, Gabby, tell everybody who you are and what they must know about you.
Hi, everyone. I am Gabriela MC. I am a business owner, content creator, mother of 2, wife. ¿Y qué más?
AKA bad bitch.
Bad bitch, delusional as fuck. Wait, can I cuss?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah,
ya vali madre.
No. Yeah, totally. Go ahead, girl.
I'm just basically someone that has a lot of confidence in herself, and I don't know if that's a gift or a curse, but I really do believe I can do anything, and I think my literal life is an example of that. So now I'm here with Jackie.
I think that your life is definitely the epitome of that. I met Gabby last year, actually in person. I had followed her on social media. Well, we had followed each other on social media, but I met her actually in person last year, and we were doing actually an interview for Postres. Insert clip here. We were doing an interview for Postres for my business channel, and I just grew so fond of you that day. It was such a beautiful experience, and I think too, sitting with you really resonated with our community, the Hispanic community, so much. We got so much love on that video, and it was just beautiful to know you and to know how you made something out of nothing. We were literally just talking about this before filming, that she started the cafe not knowing anything about anything that had to do with baking. And it would be like me starting a tire shop. Yeah, like I was like, I would never do that. Like, no. So you're delusional, balls to the wall, boss bitch, period.
Yes. Like, honestly, I am a firm believer that life is really short, and why not try everything? And I think it's also like my experience as a social worker, working with people that are at the end of their lives. And I saw so many people get to their deathbed with like anxiety and fear and like what ifs. I was like, I don't care if I look like a fool doing it. Like, me vale. I will try everything at least once, except murder and heroin. I'm like, no.
You know what? I think that's interesting that you just said that, because I feel like not a lot of people really grasp the concept of like that you're not promised tomorrow, and like to just try anything. And I feel like it's very hard for, because a lot of people say tomorrow's never promised, but I don't think people really grasp the concept of legitimately tomorrow's never promised. And I was about to ask you, like, where did that framework of mind come from? But I get it. You said you worked with people at the end of their life, because I think that death is what taught me that too.
Yeah. So ever since I was a kid, I was that kid that was always like in the chismes that I wasn't supposed to be listening to. Like, you know, the señoras be talking in the sala, and you're over there listening. Like,
and you're like,
you had no business listening to.
I know your mom told your chismosa ass, like,
like
what
that
are you
was
doing
me.
here?
Yeah, that was me. Like AF since I was a kid, and I would just listen to them, and I'm like, I could never, right? Like, waste my time in those situations or things like that. So I was like, I'm gonna not do that and then go do this other thing. Hopefully it gives me a better outcome in life. That's kind of how I've seen life. Like, everyone's here to teach us something. And I'm like, who put that in my head as a kid? I have no idea. Right. I used to think it was like my education, right? In part, it did help because it allowed me to like learn the terms to what I was already thinking and feeling. But the combination of like how I was raised with the education in mental health and the experience in social work, that is who I am now. And so when I get an idea to do something, like, it's so fast. And I don't think about like who's gonna say what or if it makes sense, or like if it financially makes sense too, because I'm like, if it brings me joy, it makes sense. And it doesn't have to make sense to other people.
Yeah. I totally relate to that. I totally relate to always being like, oh, well, I thought of this, I'm going to do it. And that's it. But I think even more after death, or after my father's death, I think even more, I'm like, who's going to tell me something?
Yeah.
Like, and what? And what are you going to say? Yeah. And how are you going to judge? Because at the end of the day, like, I could not wake up tomorrow. And I don't want to die, like, not having done what I wanted to do. I mean, as long as I didn't hurt nobody. Yeah. As long as I didn't hurt nobody, you know, on purpose, like, or intentionally, you know, step on somebody or something like that, then
exactly,
how am I gonna die? It scares me to die or to be on my deathbed and not have done the things that I wanted to do or the things that brought me joy. And you see that so much, right? When people are like nearing the end of their lives. I'm not sure exactly what you did for social work. I know that you did social work.
Yeah.
So maybe if you could elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah. So I did medical social work is like the degree or whatnot, but I worked in dialysis. And so I dealt with people that were getting the dialysis treatment. When your kidneys fail, they go and connect it to a machine and it flushes out your toxins or whatnot. And the last 2 years I was in social work, I did hospice. So hospice is when you have...
did hospice?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're so brave.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Like, yo ni me la pensé, like...
You're like, yeah, I would do that.
Well, because my husband's a hospice nurse. And he's...
Your husband's a hospice... Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are brave. I think I would take that stuff home.
Well, that's what I was worried about when he first became a nurse. And that's the field he chose. But he's always liked it. Like, the idea of being able to bring someone comfort in their last days. So he like switched the framework and it's worked for him. But when he was going through like 26, 27, he started coming into his own and he got his motorcycle, he got his tattoos, and like his parents were freaking out. But to me, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah. You're like, I get it.
You know, I'm like, oh, that's power to you, right? And then when I started working in hospice, I was like, I get it now.
Yeah.
Like, I understand. Like, the por si que I was already delusional, right? And then it's like, that just reinforced it even more. Because I've seen people that show up with peace and with acceptance to their death, which is very rare. Like, most people are afraid. They don't want to talk about death, their families. So as a social worker in hospice, if the person that was the patient, por ejemplo, if they were still conscious, I could talk to them and ask them, are you ready, and things like that. Or like, is there anything that you want to do? Who do you want to talk to? Is there anyone you want to call? You know?
Yeah.
Porque no les queda mucho tiempo. But a lot of the times they weren't conscious and they had already checked out, right? Mentally.
Right.
And this is when dementia, Alzheimer's comes in. And so me tocaba to work with the families. And it's like, usually it's one child and like there's a bunch of children. Entre más children there's more conflict usually.
Yeah.
And so it's usually one or two people taking care of the patient and they're taking on all the emotional burden too. Because a lot of people focus on the patient but not the caregivers.
Right.
And I tended to focus on them so that they could feel heard. Because I know it's about the patient, but you're the one dealing with
losing somebody too.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And then that's when I started to see like patterns of how people express grief and how it looks so different for everyone. So a lot of the time when the patient would pass away, I would come in and do like a family meeting and kind of set the tone for them. Like, hey, some people are very vocal about their loss and their pain. Some people withdraw. They don't want to be seen in pain. So they'll grieve quietly while other people are going to do it very loudly or in an anger type of, approach. So I just told everyone, like, keep that in mind as you're going through your own grief process. And ya como que it would help them be less like judgmental of each other.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you were doing hospice, you said you didn't really have a lot of engagement with the patients because they were kind of already checked out.
Most of them.
The few that you did have, did they make a huge impact on the framework of your mind? Can you give me an example of like the framework of your mind? And because I feel like, again, not until you experience somebody's death and like actually see firsthand what it means, does it really make an impact.
Oh yeah. And then one thing is to like be a social worker and have these patients, and the other thing is to experience it myself, right? So para mí, like one of my cousins passed away when I was at my last year at UCLA, and I could say she was like my older sister. And her story is very tragic, and it's all rooted in like generational trauma. But she was 34 when she passed away.
Oh my gosh, she was my age. I got chills.
Yeah, she was 34, and she had kidney failure since she was 21, so she was on dialysis. And then she got kidney transplant, and then the kidney transplant failed, so she had to get back on dialysis. And at the end, I had the blessing of having Thanksgiving with her one last time and a couple of days after she passed away. And like the death cause was a high potassium. So potassium is very dangerous for people with dialysis treatment. But what's crazy about my experience with my cousin that made it full circle for me is that, remember, I worked in dialysis as like my first job after social work school was in a dialysis clinic. But the one that I did my internship, that's where she used to go and get her treatment. And I didn't know that until literally like my last month there. The doctor that was in charge of like my supervision was her primary care physician.
No way.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm supposed to be in this field. And it was wild. But I also didn't process her loss. For me, it was like she was on vacation and I was going to see her. And
that's like, what you mentally told yourself?
Yeah. Because she was the life of the party. She was that person. She literally like couldn't walk because she had like an amputated toe or something. Pero ella andaba con su palo like in the middle of the dance floor.
Just living,
you know? And I was like, why? Like, why her out of... I'm just kidding. No diss to the rest of my family. Like,
I wish it was actually...
Imagine.
Won't say any names.
But yeah, it was like her loss was a big one porque se sintió. Like, family parties have never been the same, and it's been like 12 years.
Yeah.
And
so just to chime in really quick, did her in life teach you more about life, or her in death teach you more about death about life? Because you're saying that she was so vibrant and like, why her? But I feel like she's kind of the epitome of like, I don't care what's going on in my life, I'm still gonna live. Yes. You're gonna see me happy.
Yes, that's what I loved about her. And she always voiced like how much she believed in me too. So, and she was I mean, she grew up in East LA. She was like in the 90s. She was a teenager.
She had some hoops and some dark lip liner.
Yes. And it was like they would throw house parties and they had like crew names and all this stuff.
And the flyers.
Yes, that was her.
I feel old. I'm like, that's my age.
No way.
Yes.
But yeah, that was her. And she would just always have like a joke to say, like, te levantaba el ánimo, you know? And I remember a lot of the time we would get into these very deep conversations. Mind you, I was like 12 and she was probably 28. Like, me ganaba con mucho. And we still like were able to have conversations about life like that. And I always just appreciated her being such like a big support system in my life. But when I lost her, I was able to see her story and her trajectory. And I'm like, damn, like if this had happened, like her life would be so different. You know, because her dad is my dad's brother. Okay. And they come from a line of trauma because my grandfather didn't raise them. So abandonment, absent father, created emotionally absent children. My dad was emotionally absent. But in his mind, he did a lot better because he was physically there. Cosa que no hizo su papá. Right? But in my mind, I watched Disney Channel and I was like, why doesn't he get home and pick me up and like swing me around like these dads do on TV, right? And I was mad. I'm like, what the hell? Like, I'm getting the short end of the stick here. But I never had the capacity to understand his experience and where he came from. So I looked at my cousin's life and I looked at her dad, and it's like the same pattern. And she was just seeking to be loved. And at the end of the day, she ended up in a really abusive relationship that basically got her killed. Yeah. Oh, no. So it's very sad to see like how it all happened. And now that I'm, 30 myself, like I'm getting close to how old she was, I'm like, damn, like if people really understood how life works, we would all be suffering much less.
I think that if we took more responsibility for ourselves to say, okay, I was raised this way, but not necessarily excuse people, but understand. Because when we have empathy and when we understand from an outside perspective and really remove ourselves, like why we can allow ourselves to heal and allow ourselves to forgive, because we see people with compassion, like, dang, you did the best you could. To you, this was the best
at the time
in comparison to what you went through. Like, and if we can kind of remove ourselves, but it takes so much balls to do that. It takes so much balls to remove self and to have compassion for people, because we're always focused on, like, you did this to me.
Yes.
You did this to me. And to the unforgiveness. And I swear on my life, you guys, the less you forgive, the less you will heal, the more trauma you will store. You are only hurting yourself by not removing self and understanding just the scope of things. It doesn't mean that you have to accept, tolerate, or anything like that. It just means you understand.
Yeah.
And you can kind of separate yourself. Yes.
Awareness too. Because if you take a look around you, not everybody is aware. Most people are not. And most people are afraid of knowing and understanding, because then that creates a sense of responsibility.
Yes.
Like, oh, damn, I know the problem now. So do I have to fix this? You know, like.
Yeah.
But addressing the problem means facing yourself.
And that's hard.
People are much more comfortable distracting themselves.
Yes. And I've had to face myself a few times. I'm sure you have. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It hasn't been pretty sometimes.
What was your process like?
I think when I went to therapy, I had to do a lot of facing myself in terms of, like, how I reacted to situations, and how can I explain this to you? I had to, like, it was hard for me because I had to look at myself and where my faults were, and, like, forgive myself for my fault and the contribution I had to certain situations because of my fault, because of the way my hyper independence was, because of my lack of forgiveness was, like, all of these things that I was like, oh no, I'm perfect. You know, like, I don't do anything wrong. I'm, you know, like, and it was rough. It was hard for me to.
It humbled you real fast.
It humbled me so fast. So fast. But then I also got the opportunity in doing that to kind of do this exercise. I don't know if it's an exercise. Maybe you know more about it than me, or how to word it. But I did something where I did a lot of talking to my inner child, like me as a little girl. Oh, my eyes got watery. Like, looking at her and telling her, like, you know, it's okay. Like, you're safe. It's okay. Like, you know, you don't have to protect yourself like this. Like, not everybody's trying to hurt you, or you don't have, you can ask for help. Like, tell my little girl self these things. I think that was one of the most healing exercises I had ever done in my entire life. Like, and now whenever I have a moment of, like where you digress, you know, I'm like, oh, I need to make sure that she feels okay.
Yes.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. But a lot of it, the healing came after, when I started to face myself as a little girl and be like, you're good.
And it's so crazy how a lot of people are like, well, how do we process trauma? Right? Because I mentioned the patients that had, like, dementia, and how dementia ends up being your body storing the trauma that you lived through and it not being able to process it. So it causes inflammation in your body, it causes inflammation in your bones, eventually it goes to your brain, and then you check out.
Right.
The ability to face yourself comes with awareness. Like, you had to somehow at some point come across this idea of, like, talking to your inner child, and you were like, what the heck? Like, how does one even do that, you know? But you have the opportunity to do it, and you face yourself, but some people won't do it. And some people are not ready for it.
And I don't think people understand what it really means and the value of it.
No. And I think part of accepting your awareness too is understanding that the person you might love the most, for example, our parents, siblings, it might not happen for them in this lifetime, right? Entonces that becomes like, but you want to tell them, because you're like, oh my gosh, life is so much better after you do this, and, like, you could be so happy and you wouldn't suffer as much, but it's not their time. And so that becomes really hard for you. It's like, oh, like, how do I still support you without getting, like, too involved in your journey, and knowing like where to draw that boundary?
Because everybody has a different point of self-awareness. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you understand that everybody out in society is operating at a different level of consciousness, and that their timing is different and their life purpose is different, like, you will stop taking everything personal.
Yes.
Like, it's so liberating.
Yes. I really don't take much personal. I really don't. And I really try to like observe them as what they are. Yes, of course, it'll affect me for a second or two or a day or two, and I have my moment because I'm human. But then I'm like, there's some things that you have going on that are not in my control or whatever. And that applies to anybody. You know, even my kids, as they're growing up, they're developing their own character. And I know sometimes I just got to let them have their moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also becomes hard to be that person in the family, because if you're the one voicing it, you're going to hear a lot of feedback. Even if you don't get affected by it, like, you're still going to hear it. Yeah. And you're like, damn, like, I was just trying to help you, or I was just trying to do this so that you had a better outcome. And you're just like, turns out, like, I'm a bitch now. Like, what? Like, okay.
They're like, oh, she's here again with her
like,
opinion.
Ahí viene esta mamona. Like,
yeah. No, totally. I get it. So I do want to touch on the fact that you just had a video go viral, and you were talking about pretty much inflammation in the body and how some of our traumas affect our body, and just I want to do a deeper dive into that and how, like, vitamin D and all those things, because I am a huge believer in trauma really affecting our body, because even down to looking at pictures of myself when I was still married and still in that relationship, I don't recognize myself. Like, yeah, I got some Botox or whatever, some filler, but I don't recognize myself because I don't see myself in my eyes. I see nothing. I see darkness, sadness, loneliness, emptiness. Like, I can look at my pictures and I feel so sad for the person that I see. And I see pictures now and videos, and they're just so full of life and animation, and it's just gotten better over the past 2 years. So I'm a huge believer that our trauma really
gets stored in your body.
It's in here. And my dude, another one, my knees used to hurt. Crunchy. Yes, my knees used to hurt at the gym when I would squat heavy, like the joints right here and in my lower back, they used to hurt really bad. I don't have any more pain, and I don't take fish oil. I don't take anything.
Yeah. So a lot of the things that I noticed, so because I was in medical social work, right, I had the unique experience of looking at people's health charts. Yeah. And their social background. And I'm the only one that was looking at both. Doctors usually ask social workers for, like, the family dynamic, if they're going to get surgery or whatever, like, who's going to help the patient recover, right? That's the only reason why they would look into family history. Right. Social workers look into family history to identify childhood traumas, to identify, like, okay, so you live with your husband. How's your relationship? Is it someone that, like, supports you, or is it someone you're afraid of? You know, like, these dynamics really affect a patient's mental health. Right. And so if we identify, like, anxiety, symptoms of depression, we refer them to clinical psychology or a licensed clinical social worker. Right. And so in reviewing these charts over 6 years that I was in social work, I started noticing a pattern between childhood trauma and their diagnosis of Alzheimer's dementia. And I was like, I have a feeling that people who have a messed up childhood, or they had to work really young and they didn't get to live a childhood, or they had an abusive marriage and things like that, they end up getting dementia because their mind is just so full of the pain that it rather leave them than stay here all the way to the end. And a lot of the times it's sad. It's like, it's basically when the person's the happiest, when they don't remember anything anymore. Yeah. So anxiety ends up affecting your memory. Even, I don't know if you can think back to when you had, you know, trauma in your life, you forget a lot of things.
You do.
There's some people that forget complete eras of their lives. And then we're calling it ADHD, right? Like, oh, it's because I'm so distracted. But I'm like, it's because you're in your mind trying to escape your reality, because you didn't have another sense of safety. And so I started seeing this pattern, and it became so easy for me to tell where there was generational trauma. Because you know how there's that belief that wealth lasts 3 generations? Right. Y luego se pierde? Right. It's the same thing with generational trauma. It happens in 3s. If you take a look at anybody in your life, and you can either tell either they're the narcissistic parent, that like starts the messed up cycle, or they're the emotionally absent person, or they're the anxiety, depression grandchild of that person.
Like, and what comes after that? Please tell me it's happy, because I think I'm counting. I'm like, okay, got the narcissist, got that one. I'm like, okay, I know my mom suffered with anxiety, depression. I hope mine is happy next, because
so usually you have one person. So it's like I explained in another video. Like, in order for you to have a horror movie, it has to have these certain elements, and there's always like some ugly ass house in the woods that for whatever reason the family's there, the parents don't want to leave, and then the kids start seeing some shit. Yes. And then some dumb bitch falls and she gets taken.
I saw that video. I saw that video.
So these things have to be in place.
You're like, all horror movies are the same.
Yes, they are. So just like those are the same, generational trauma is always the same. It's a narcissistic person, and then it's an emotionally absent, schizophrenic, bipolar. Like, they end up getting these things because they're coping with a narcissistic person that's unable to see how they impact others, because that's the literal diagnosis. And then you have the grandkids that are usually either coping with drugs or anxiety, depression, medication, like, because they're just trying to deal with, right? There's always going to be one person in that family system that's the observer and that's gonna speak out and break the cycle. So these things have to happen in order for that one person to wake up and for the healing to occur.
I'm like, you're welcome, family.
But those people are usually the black sheep. ¿Te identificas?
I'm like, yeah. I'm like,
yeah, same.
Hey.
High five.
Hi.
Yeah. So, and if you look at all of humanity, it's literally the same thing. And that's how we evolve as humans. Because there's that one person in the group. But that's why it feels so slow. Like, why do people don't get it? But because most people are not supposed to.
Yeah.
Because
they're not all the changers or the...
No. And I had an instinctive feeling, like, I don't think we're all supposed to wake up at the same time, because that would be chaos.
Yeah.
Like, imagine we all understood. No.
No, it's like, too much. Yeah. No, you're right.
Like,
you're right.
Energetically, it wouldn't work. And as I've, like, evolved in my own spiritual journey, it makes a lot of sense. And again, we just have to hear people's responses to what we say. But if at the end of the day, we know in our hearts that we're following our higher path, like, who cares?
Okay, speaking on spirituality a little bit, I'm not sure if you're Christian or not, or you're...
I was raised Catholic, but I'm spiritual in the sense that, like, God is everywhere. God is within you. I believe that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so in the spiritual sense, because you know how they say that we carry, like, generational curses. So we're talking about generational trauma, generational curses. Do you believe that spirituality has, like, something to do with breaking that trauma, breaking those cycles, and at some point it does end? Okay.
Absolutely. I think this is how humans are supposed to evolve. That's why only certain people in the family have that, like, knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
It really isn't, because some people don't understand that it's like a gift or it's your life purpose.
Yeah.
To be in that headspace. And one of the things I learned too about when people pass away is that whatever lesson they were supposed to learn here on earth, if they didn't, they learn it when they cross and then when they transition. And so they're truly happy on the other side.
Yeah.
And they just join the rest of your ancestors and become your spirit team. And now they're literally there to make your life easier here on earth while you're still here. And so that kind of gave me a sense of relief.
Low key, that makes me excited to die. Like, not to be morbid, but it makes me so excited to, because I already feel so much peace and happiness on its own. Like, even with life happening, that I can just imagine it with it being undisturbed. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, take me there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, it depends on how open you are to that, right? Because I was raised Catholic, so it was very, like, organized. Like,
I was too.
This is where God is at. You have to go here every Sunday, like, stuff like that. So I was like,
it was very ritualistic.
Yeah. And I was operating outside of that. Like, I'm like, God is in everyone. And the conversations I have with people at the cafe, for example, I'm like, there's God energy in there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think that because it's not in a temple, I'm not going to get credit for it. Like, girl, no.
It's like, it's how much of a relationship you have, or whatever your spiritual path you're on, and however much of a relationship you had. I just thought that it was an interesting correlation between having, like, dealing with generational trauma and like what's passed down in your bloodline, and also generational curses. And I also feel like it's up to us to kind of break those cycles, and it's all part of it. Like it's all linked up together.
And usually those people are very artistic and creative.
Yeah.
And those are the people that create films that like touch an entire generation. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's all like purposeful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Actually, it's terrible, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, crazy, beautiful mess.
It's a courageous path to take.
Yeah.
Because most people are like, oh, if I had known like how lonely it was gonna be right before they get to like the flow stage, they're like, oh no. And then some people go and do drugs, and then that's it. They try. You know what I mean? Like
they try to get enlightened through another way.
Yeah.
They saw the light through another path.
Some people see it, yeah, but then it's like maybe in this lifetime they weren't ready for it.
Yeah, it was too much because it can be a lot.
That's why like I see people that are in drugs, and I'm like, I don't judge them. They're just coping. Like this world isn't the easiest.
They're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard.
And I feel like all these conditions have to be there in order for you to like burst out and like come into acceptance, but a lot of these people don't have those things. They may have one factor or the other, and they're like, well, what am I gonna do with this? And it becomes too much. Yeah.
Okay, so going back to that video that went viral, why do you think it went viral?
Well, first, my hook. I was like, if I go missing after this.
Okay, well, yeah, that was a good it was a good hook.
No, I didn't even think about it.
No, I know.
It came out, because you know I'm stupid like that. Like, I don't take myself too seriously.
The hook was good.
But like,
but it was the content.
Yes.
It was the content.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about the content that resonated?
I think the fact that I talked about how much pain I was in when I was 23. Like, you're not supposed to be in this much pain at 20 years old. I had just had my daughter, so it was my second child. And for whatever reason, I didn't keep taking the prenatals. I think it has to do with that too. But I was dealing with postpartum depression.
Your hormones were a mess.
They were. And then I was trying to carry her, and she weighed like, I don't know, 8 pounds or something, like not grande. And my elbows were hurting, my wrists, my hips, my knees. Like, you know how you said your knees were hurting? I'm like, there's something wrong. Like, why am I feeling this? And so I would go to the doctor. They would run labs. Oh, everything's fine. Like, you're just going through depression. You're going to be okay, whatever. And my mentor, shout out to her, she was like, Mija, it sounds like you have your vitamin D low. Go get it checked. Which is crazy because they're not going to check it. It's for whatever reason, it's a separate blood exam. Like, it's not included in your yearly labs. And I was like, So then I started doing research, and vitamin D comes from the sun. Yes. Right? So before the pandemic hit, I already foresaw a big hike in mental health issues. Right. Because vitamin D deficiency is linked to anxiety. It's linked to bone pain, hair loss, stress. And it's because you're not giving your body enough sun. When on earth are you, if you're like a typical American living in the West Side that has a job from 9 to 5, you're always in an office. If you're driving to work, you're inside a car. If you go to the gym, you're inside another building. Like, when are you seeing the sunlight? You know,
I think that most people don't even know how much of an impact the sun has. Like it literally is a life force.
It is, and we're told to stay out of it for what? Colorism. Yeah. Oh, te vas a poner muy prieta.
Girl, I don't even wear sunscreen, so don't even try me.
You know, like the culture too. It doesn't help. Stay out of the sun because you're gonna get dark. And the fuck,
dude, I eat my breakfast outside. I eat my lunch outside. Yeah. I let the sun kiss my skin at any chance I can get because I feel it makes me feel alive. Literally does. To put it in like short terms. And I don't know that I had anxiety. I don't know that I ever suffered necessarily from depression, maybe postpartum. But like in terms of the past 2 years and post my relationship, I started to have, and post death also, an appreciation for like being outside. And I kid you not, I got like an overdose of sun while I was in Lake Arrowhead because I was outside for a retreat I just went on. And that overdose of sun filled me with so much emotion, like so much love and joy, and like all, I just felt like like so alive. And that was for a few hours of sun every day. The sun makes such a huge difference. People are like, oh, I'm sad, close the blinds. They want to close the blinds, and you're making it worse.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
That's why like sadness in film, it's associated with darkness, and like slow music with like low vibrato and all that. It's all connected, like energetically. And we start conditioning our kids since they're little. They're in school all the time. They see the sun for like 30 minutes in recess. If they got sun.
Not my kids.
You know?
Girl. My kids are not allowed to be inside the house when they get home.
Yeah.
They go outside. No tablet, no phone, no PlayStation. Go outside.
And you're doing amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. I send them out because I feel like they're more fun and they're happier. They come inside, they're tired, they had fun with their friends, they did their own little problem solving with their friends. They come in all dirty, black, all kinds of mess. And I'm like, it's shower time. They're like, yeah. We get some food. I'm like, yeah. Did you have a good day? Yeah. You know, so it makes such a huge difference in the way that you feel, and people underestimate even going outside. I don't know if you do this or done this, but you ever go outside barefoot?
I ground myself. Yeah.
Same.
I've been doing that for years.
Oh my gosh. Same. Therapy changed my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. People underestimate all these like very simple things that you can do and put into effect in your life that makes such a huge difference for how you feel.
Absolutely. So it's like vitamins, sun, grounding yourself. Like your life will just get so much better. And it's like those are very inexpensive. They're accessible. Except like for whatever reason we lose our sense of like being a child, and we just stay inside. We don't want to get, we don't want to get dirty, whatever. Like we lose that, and then we wonder why we're depressed and anxious and we hate our lives, and then we call it like a quarter life crisis or something. Just like it's just literally your brain's not done developing until you're 25. So whatever you did.
We just talked about this. Yeah, we were talking about this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, give yourself grace. Like you literally did not know what you were doing.
Yeah.
And by that time I had 2 kids already, and I was like 6 years deep into my marriage. Like
we literally just had a conversation about being 25 and her frontal lobe. Sophia's 24. You guys, Sophia's behind the camera. And we were just, I've been on her butt about doing certain things and like just working on herself. She's like, listen, I'm going to turn 25. My frontal lobe is going to be developed. So give me some time. I have 4 months. I was like, okay, you have 4 months, girl.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
I've been working with someone, like coaching them, and they just turned 25 on Sunday. And literally the day before, they were like, oh my gosh, I'm free. And I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, I get it. Like, I understand it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, your brain really said 25.
Yeah, it said, here I am. Okay, Sophia, we have hope. We have hope. We're almost there. We're almost at the finish line.
So I'm like, if people just knew like how we evolve spiritually, energetically, and biologically, like we wouldn't be freaking out so much.
Yeah.
Everybody takes a chill pill. Like, relax.
Do you
be okay?
Do you feel like that gives you more insight on yourself and your own personal development, being that you know these frameworks and these like timelines? So where are you at? Like, give us an example. So we just talked about Sophia's age range and like the frontal lobe and all that. Where are you at?
I just turned 30. So
ooh, I love 30, girl. It just gets better, let me tell you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be in my 30s, but I just went through my like spiritual awakening. It was from about 27.
Tell me that shit 30. Does not put you on your ass.
Yes, yeah, I got dragged. Life had hands and it beat my ass. But it was like, okay, you want to be a millionaire? You want to be this big bad bitch? Like, step it up. I'm like, okay.
I'm so tired.
It was ghetto, but it was worth it. I learned, like, I really faced myself. I was like, damn, because I started postres. I opened the doors like right after turning 27. I was like, no mames, like con razón. Like,
yeah.
It was crazy. Like, I'm going on 3 years in June, and it's not the same business anymore.
Yeah.
The same people are not with me. I'm not the same person. I'm just like, but I'm so happy.
Major evolution.
Yeah. I'm so happy. And like, I also allowed myself to get help from people. Because forever the hyper independence, right? I don't know how to ask for help. I can do this. I can prove it to you. And I'm like, why? Why am I trying to do life alone? Like, there's no need. And so the moment I started allowing that into my life, it just carried me. Like, I had to surrender. And I was like, period. I'm here for it. I'm here for the soft era.
Yeah. I'm like, same.
Yes, I love it. And it's like, it's because you push through and learn the lessons you had to learn during that time. Like, if you don't, then it comes back at 50.
Yeah, I think I definitely got whammied. I got smacked in the face, but I think my time was more from 29 to 32. My time period, I feel like it's around the same range. But
did you have a baby during that time?
Yes.
That's why.
Yeah. So I had Mila, my daughter, and around that time, everything happened from my kid to the affair in my marriage to then the separation to then business changing to then moving. Like,
it's like you crumble and fall apart so that the real you has to come forward.
So many things fell apart. It was one of the hardest times of my entire life. But now in retrospect, I feel so thankful for that person. Like, thankful for you, thankful for everything that you were able to survive. And like now being on this other side, I feel like I have tools and I'm better equipped to serve.
Yes. And that's what actual self-love is. When you're able to look back at previous versions of yourself and feel that sense of gratitude. Yeah. Because each version of you had to do her thing in order for this version of Jackie to be here.
Yeah. I feel terrible for her though. I'm like, girl, you was like, nobody knew that you were in that car punching the steering wheel. You were in that closet screaming into the pillow, crying, begging for answers. And it was like, no matter what I begged for, what I reached for, it was like nothing, nothing. Like, you just have to go through this.
Yeah, you have to get through it.
And it was hard.
Do you believe that you became the person? So let's say prior to this transformation, you used to be this type of person and you liked that version of yourself. And then for whatever reason, she got lost during your transition.
Yes.
Yeah. You came back to her?
I came back to her, to a more evolved her. To a more evolved her. I feel like I always knew inside who I wanted to be and who I defined myself as. But I feel like I couldn't be that because there was so much going on. And now that time has passed, and especially now 2 years later, I feel like I'm at the very starting line of, and like, so oh shit, y'all just wait. I don't know what God's gonna do with me, but he's gonna do a number, a good one. Absolutely. Because now I feel safe. I feel safe. I feel safe to be myself. I feel safe to voice my opinion. I feel safe to do anything. Nothing scares me anymore. As a matter of fact, I just lost my TikTok. You know that?
Oh my God, I know. What the hell?
I hit 250K on TikTok like 2 weeks ago, April 15th. I was really happy. Today's April 24th. And it's been 9-10 days. And I lost it. And I think an old version of me, or the person that was hurting, would have been like, because this is something that I'm holding on to. This is like my survival. And it's like, no, I didn't feel any of those things. I know me. Yeah. And I did it once. I'll do it again. Yeah. I'm like, and the world doesn't end because guess what? I'm alive. I got breath in my lungs. The sun will still kiss my skin. The rain will still fall. Like, it does not matter. I feel so alive. There's nothing that you can take from me that will steal the joy that's inside, just because I'm so thankful to be alive.
That's powerful.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, let's keep it moving. And I think that being in that place now, I feel like I'm just so blessed for the smallest things. That all these other things that happen around me that are not in my control, I feel okay with, because no matter what, I can't control it.
You're flowing.
Yeah, I can't control it. What do I gain from trying to control something that I can't control? I'm literally torturing myself.
Control is just a fancy word for fear.
Yeah. And you can't do any, like, I feel like so many of us drown in that, because that was me. Confession too. Obviously that was me. But I feel like a lot of us drown in like wanting to control the outcome of everything. And when we don't get that, it's when we crumble, because we're like, oh, we were wanting it to be this way. And if you just let it go and let it be whatever it is.
You know what's crazy though? Like, we're socialized to think that we have control.
Yeah.
Like that's how they raise you. Like, oh, you can do this. It's your fault. You did this. Da-da-da. Like there's such a fine balance between those two things. Like you are responsible for the decisions you make, right? You are responsible for taking aligned action. But as far as the outcome, you can't control that. All you have to do is surrender to the universe, to God, to your higher power, that the best outcome for your life purpose is going to come.
Yeah.
And when you do that, like, how fun is it for life to surprise you?
Yeah. Like, sometimes I'm like, no, you could have kept that surprise to yourself. I didn't want that one.
But I really live, like, every day like that. Like, what's going to happen today? I mean, like, I need to get more organized as far as, like, meetings and stuff goes. But outside of compromisos que tengo con la gente, like, it's surprised me, universe. Like, show me how good it gets.
Yeah.
And it gets really good.
It really does. Yeah. It really does. When you kind of just go with the flow and you kind of just go with, like, whatever momentum is coming in and just kind of live just thankful. Yeah. It makes all the difference in the world. Because life keeps giving you
more things to be grateful for because that's the energy you're putting out.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you like that? Let me give you more of that. Because that's what you're in. That's what you're thinking about. So it expands.
Yeah. I think that's one of my favorite compliments ever is like, oh, I love your vibe. Or like, you make me feel happy. Or like, oh, I think that's one of my favorite compliments because I'm like, damn, I worked so hard
to be that.
To get here. Like to feel that for myself. So for other people to feel it around me.
It's also why you're not willing to compromise it.
Oh, dude. Don't even get me started on not compromising. Yeah. Oh, Lord. No.
Yeah.
There will be no compromising here, sister.
If it's not 100% fuck yeah, I'm excited about this, don't do it.
Yeah.
If there's an ounce of like, maybe, I'm not sure, don't do it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no explanation. Like, how are you going to tell people, like, I just don't vibe with you? They'll be like, what the fuck? Like, I'm sorry, but I literally cannot be around your low energy.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I can feel that too.
Yeah. That's one of the gifts that comes with doing the work.
Yeah.
That you're so, because I don't know if you know this, but like all of our senses, like even the hairs on our arms are there to tell us information about our environment.
I didn't know that.
Yes, your hair.
I'm like, tell me more. Educate me. Educate me.
Like our hair picks up energy. And so you know how like the hairs on the back of your neck stand up when you're in fear?
That's not just the same?
Nope.
Oh,
it's collecting data.
I'm like, get a pen.
No, it is. That's why you're not supposed to ignore like instinct or gut feelings because it's your body telling you. And a lot of the time, I know I've watched documentaries about serial killers and all this stuff, but it's like the women that end up falling for these people, they had a gut feeling. They ignored it because they're socialized to help in anyone that's in need.
You're absolutely
and then
right.
They're like, remember, men are never going to ask a woman for help if they actually need help. So that's a red flag. And it's like, do not ignore your instincts. But we're so like, no, we have Lord Savior's complex or whatever it's called. Ya y vamos. I could change him. Bitch, no, you can't.
No, I'm not trying to change nobody.
We can't change ourselves.
Girl, I'm not, I don't want, that's who you are. That's fine. I don't want to change nobody. I don't want to change anything or anything. I actually recently had been dating somebody and he said something to me like on a drunken night. Said something like, you're too good for me. Like, you're too good for me. Like, you're amazing. You're great and all this stuff. And as he was saying that, I had never thought that I would be this person. But as he was saying that, I was like, yeah, well, maybe I am. So then, like, I can't change that. So we shouldn't date. Because if you think that, I'm not here to make you feel comfortable. Nor am I here to justify why I am good enough for you. You can't see that? That's okay. I really like you, pero I'm not here to do any of that work.
No.
That's not my job.
That's the thing too about being in your light, right? It's gonna attract some darkness. Naturally.
Yes. Why that
you're gonna be hit with some weird shit.
Yeah. I'm like, girl, I'm tired. Universe, hear me out. I'm tired. Leave me alone.
Tú eres un ser de luz, like literally. Oh. And so it ends up people like they like your energy for them.
Yeah.
Not because it's you.
Yeah.
So be careful with that. But I mean,
I think discernment really helps now, though. Yeah, like you really I'm not a guarded person. I'm not like I'm not gonna let you in. I'll let you in, and I'll give you some time, like a month, 2 months, and then if I start to see, I'm like, no, this isn't for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, awareness, and like the thing, like anybody listening to this podcast, it's gonna come with time.
Yeah.
So be patient with yourself. If you're like, damn, like why'd I end up in this fucked up relationship? Like you blame yourself for it. Like it's part of your journey. So give yourself grace. Like,
yes.
It's okay.
And also, guys, I'm not like a spring chicken, okay? Like I was in the military. I did 4 years of service. I have a college degree. I have 3 kids. I have 2 boys and 1 girl, all 3 different personalities. I was married. I went through an affair. I went through therapy to try to recover that affair. Like I had a business. I closed the business. Like
you already
made $1 million, lost $1 million. You know what I mean? Like I've done quite a lot. So do not be discouraged by. And I'm also 34. So I'm like,
I wonder.
I'm not in my early 20s. You know? Huh?
Do you know your energy type or no?
No. How would you find that out?
Oh, because I have a feeling like you're either a manifester or a manifesting generator.
Oh, I don't even know what that is. Where do you find that? No. I thought you were going to tell me like what color I am. I'm like, no. Bitch, I'm yellow. Whatever yellow is, I'm yellow because I'm just happy.
Well, yeah. I mean, yellow's a powerful color, but no, your energy type is based on like your birth date.
Oh, really? No, I have no idea what goes on Google. Hey, Sophia starts researching me.
Yeah. No, there's this app called My Human Design, and it tells you everything.
Really?
And if you look at, I want to say like you're either a manifestor or a manifesting generator. Like, get apostar because of your trajectory.
Interesting.
Yeah. And there's only 9% of the world's population is a manifestor, myself included.
Yeah, shitty.
Yeah. That's why I'm like,
I'm like, shitty.
No sé, dos locas entienden.
I'm like, okay, girl, say less. Gonna do that. Write that down, Sophia, so we could do that after.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, so then now touching on some of the things that you've gone through and some of the things that you've overcome, as open as you want to be, you just released a book. I haven't got it yet. I know you just put it on pre-order.
Yeah.
And you talk about some of the trauma that you faced as a child and growing up and how that shaped you and how it made you to be where you are.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that or like share whatever you can with me?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we were talking about is grief, right? And how we process it. For me, one of the ways of processing grief is to write. And I never set out to be an author like when I was little. But I was always really good at writing. And I just read a lot. Desde bien chiquita. Entonces, when I wrote the first book, it was just about my college experience and what happened to me from 16 to 19 years old. Entonces, it's the first generation experience, the culture, like when you leave your house to go to school, when you come back and you try to connect and it's not the same anymore. It's all that stuff.
Yeah, I remember that book. I remember we talked about that initially.
Yeah. So that one ends when I tell my parents I'm pregnant and that I'm going to get married. And shit hit the fan, of course. You know, like I got pregnant at 19. I wasn't married. And if you come from a traditional Mexican Catholic family, it's like you're supposed to wait till marriage to have sex. And then you get married through the church. And then you have a baby. And then you baptize the baby. Like there's all these things, right? Y pues yo salí con mi domingo 7 and I was like, yeah, no. That's not gonna work. So I didn't know if my parents were gonna go to my wedding or not, but that's where the first book ends. The first book starts the day of my wedding in Vegas. Entonces that in itself, I was hesitant because people were like, are you gonna write a second book, Gabby? Are you gonna do it? And I was like, I think it's time, because last year I did a lot of inner child healing, and I know you talked about this process earlier. The reason why I felt it had to be last year was because my daughter was 5 at the time. So again, self-awareness. When it happened to me, I was 7.
Okay.
And when I started healing, I started looking at my matrilineage. My mom's dad passed away when she was 7. And my grandma, her childhood best friend, passed away when she was 7.
Oh my gosh.
And so there's this generational trauma that happens for us at 7. For whatever reason. And my daughter turning 5 kind of made me anxious, because if it's one thing, and this is also like trigger warning, right? Sexual assault in families. It's very common, and people are not going to talk about it. And
I feel like it's very common in our community.
Yes, in the Latino community.
Yeah.
It's very common, and they much rather keep the family together than advocate for the child for whatever reason. And so I started doing inner child work by first like playing the guitar. I was 7 when I learned how to play the guitar. So I stopped playing it when I started feeling distant from my family. When I started feeling the rejection, because you're a kid, everyone thinks you're cute, and then you hit a certain age and they're like, "Ay, estás bien gordita."
Cuando se caen los dientes también, yes. And you're just like
suddenly
I hate those pictures, yes. By the way. When I was that age, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, so you get objectified. Like, oh, you can't be wearing that porque los viejos te van a ver. They do that to you. And so when I started feeling that kind of vibe from the family, the guitar thing stopped. And I mean, I wanted to pursue music, but como que se apagó.
Tu luz.
And so for me, I started playing the guitar again last year, and that like started moving energy for me. And I was like, oh shit, here we go. And I had a very healing experience with a spiritual healer in Mexico, del rancho de donde es mi mamá, like literally from over there. And we did guided meditation for inner child healing. And before we started, the first thing she said, "Are you ready to forgive your mom?" Y yo.
Yeesh. I think that made my eyes water.
Dije, no manches. But I was like, I'm ready. I'm tired of having this in my heart. I need to let go and forgive. Cuando la gente no te pide disculpas, and you have to find it in you to forgive them before they even ask. Yeah. And a big part of me always felt like she wasn't going to understand in this lifetime how bad I needed that. And so in the meditation, I met my inner child and I asked for forgiveness. I let her know she was going to be okay and that she was safe. And I did the same thing with my mother's inner child and my grandmother's. And for whatever reason, when I did that with my grandmother's inner child is when I started sobbing and like really felt the release, because our trauma comes from our grandmothers. And so I had that experience and I came back to the US and I met with my grandma. And I'm like, girl, I have to tell you something. Because for the longest, they were like, why don't you come around to family parties? Like, why do you always come late and you leave early? Like, why? Porque eres mamona, basically, right? And I'm like, I need to explain to you, like, my life experience and how it's connected to you. I'm like, I don't know about your other 20 grandkids or your 7 children, but this is how I've experienced being your granddaughter. And I told her everything that she knew already about the sexual assault. And part of me was angry because I'm like, everybody knew. And no one did anything. So como dice Jenny Rivera, agarrados de la mano, chinguen todos a su madre. That's me as fuck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, because these were all adults. And they didn't do anything, And they still don't. They still rather cover.
You vocalized this when you were
a child. When it happened, I vocalized
your mother.
And she decided to keep it under wraps because she's like, no, your dad's going to kill him and go to jail and you're going to lose your dad. And as a kid, I was like, no, I don't want to lose my dad. Yeah. So it became...
talk about like the biggest fear as a mother.
Yeah. Entonces for me, the biggest wound was like when I became a mother. So when I was pregnant with Emily. Por eso Emily's on the back cover of my book. Because being pregnant with her, they were trying to plan my baby shower. And my mom insisted on inviting her family. And I was like, I cannot have your family there. Like, you don't understand. And that's when it all came out. Like, all the anger. I was like, when are you going to choose your daughter? Like, stop putting your family first. And, like, I know that it's all connected to trauma. The therapist in me knew that. But the daughter in me was angry and was hurt. Más me fui. I'm like, she's never going to get it. And having my daughter is what brought my voice back. Because when I started playing the guitar last year, ella se arrimaba conmigo a cantar, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And I knew that I had to do the healing work, and I knew that when I did it, it was gonna come out artistically. I knew it was like a blockage that I had. And I love music.
You do. You sing so good. Yeah.
I love singing, pero I never felt comfortable in front of those people. And I even stopped doing it at family parties because my aunts would come up to me, mija, ¿por qué no cantas? No, es que yo ya me retiré de los escenarios, tía. Yo ya no. Yeah. I would say that, you know?
I'm no longer on MTV, girl. Yeah.
Like, I would just say that, but it was really a cover for, like, I can't. I don't feel safe around you guys to be myself like that, you know? And so for me, this book, writing it, it was important that I talk about it because so many women go through it. And it's, again,
terrifying.
It's one of the biggest fears we have of something happening to our children and us feeling like we can't help them. And that's when it got more fucked up for me. Because when I had my daughter, ya tenía mi hijo, right? But when I had my daughter, I was like, oh my gosh, you touch my child, I will come for blood.
Yeah.
And so it messed with me that it didn't happen that way for me.
Yeah.
You know? And so part of that was forgiving, accepting, and then making myself feel safe because it wasn't going to come from anyone else. And I wrote the book with the intention of helping another person going through that to understand how complex families really are. And the healing that's come for me, like from this experience, has been crazy because I have people messaging me and like, oh my gosh, I'm in chapter 7. I'm throwing hands. Like,
yeah,
I'm going to go.
I heard about chapter 7.
Yeah. They're like, what the hell? Like, how is this happening? Blah, blah, blah. And like, they understand now, you know, porque in my family, like, I'm the villain. I'm the one that came and split the family up. And I'm like, I split the family up? We're not going to talk about the adult here who's still...
I'm so sorry.
You know? And so I was like, una familia así, ¿pa qué la quieres?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So I've found family outside of my bloodline. And that's what happens with a lot of us that are the observers and that are the black sheep. We end up finding people that are energetically aligned with us, and we create things that help other people heal. Entonces yo como que all of this process, and even what I'm going to do musically, like I want to help people heal with me because that's how I heal, with words and songs. And because sometimes una canción gets you through the night in your darkest moments, right? Like it helps you get through it. And so for me, like that's powerful. But in order for me to feel comfortable singing in front of people, I feel like I have to know them like in that way. Yeah. I would not go to like the freaking shopping center and just start to like who is this
with bitch? Your guitar, you know your little hat.
Yeah, like I'm not down for that. I'm more like if it's at an event and I know the people and they know my story, then yeah, it's really weird. Like I'm not trying to do. Like I've thought about it too, and a lot of my influence comes from Jenny Rivera and how big of a fan I am and how I know her story and how I see myself in a lot of her stories. But siento que ella sufrió mucho, and that when it came time for her to be happy también, like she self-sabotaged and she didn't know how to be happy. But I'm like, she's not to blame. Like her whole life was like that, and she just kind of reached for those moments, right, when she had them. Pero yo le miraba como que spiritually estaba cansada. And
you can see it.
Yeah, you can see that. And I mean, I met her and I like stalked her low-key. But I'm like
hey, you're outside her fence and shit.
I know. No, I ended up meeting her at Chiquis' Blow Me Dry opening, one of her businesses that she had.
Yeah.
Literally months before she passed away.
Yeah.
And she was so nice. And she was on her BlackBerry. She used to tweet a lot in her BlackBerry. And I was like, oh my God, like my stomach was going to drop out of my ass. Like, she's like, she's right there, you know? Because for me, it was Chente and her.
Yeah.
Like the baddest.
Yeah.
And so, como que se me quedó mucho eso de su vida de ella and how she kept saying, I want to go home to my kids. I didn't have time with my kids. And when I went and auditioned for Tengo Talento when my son was like a year old. And I was like, when do these people see their kids? Like, it hit me.
Yeah.
Because I was there the whole day and so was Ana Barbara and so was Don Cheto. And I was like, oh, hell no, like, they don't have family time.
Yeah.
Or like it's a really hard balance or something. So como que dije, no, esta vida no es para mí.
Yeah. No, I'm good.
No, and then también like the industry is not the friendliest with women.
Yeah.
And especially regional Mexican. I'm like, no, para que alguien me diga a mí lo que voy a decir, lo que no, dije, tan pendejos.
No, menos.
No, so dije, I'm just gonna go and be a girl boss and open businesses and help people. And now that it's come full circle, I'm like, it's because I went and did social work and I did all this healing that I know exactly what people go through. And the songs that I write is about everything that's in between falling in love and breaking up. There's so much more, you know?
Yeah. So, you were exactly where you were supposed to be when you needed to be to get you to this place to where music could be an outlet and also like a saving grace for some people to relate to. Yeah. So I feel like that's what we do the most is we try to find people that we can relate to so that we don't feel alone.
Exactly. And that's what vulnerability has done for me. It's created space for not only my healing, but for more people. And music does that to you. And just like there's different steps in grief, like anger, como se dice? Resentment, denial, like all these different emotions, right? Like the songs that I've been writing, it's like I'm going through the process through the songs. And I'm like, damn, that's so cool. Like in my mind, I'm like, that's crazy. But it makes a lot of sense because I'm like, who in their mind that's been an artist their whole life, like how would they know the story of all these people? They wouldn't, right? And then like, unless you're a social worker and you know a bunch of people's life stories, you could write like that.
Right.
And unless you're musically inclined, you're not going to pursue a career in music.
Right.
So como que yo en mi vida makes a lot of sense to me now. But I first had to go and start businesses so that I could support myself financially, so that I could be a musician, an artist freely without anybody being like, no, you can't say that because the person with the money, the investor, doesn't want you to.
Yeah, now you're doing it out of like your creative outlet and a way to serve.
Yeah.
It's your way of serving.
It's another form. And so for me, the book explains one of the songs that I put out recently, and people are like, what is the song called? I'm like, it doesn't have a name. I just wrote it. And they're like, when are you dropping it on Shopify? What on Spotify? Yeah. I was like, you guys are for reals? I'm literally just fucking around. And they're like, no, we're dead ass. I'm like, that's crazy. And so I'm working on that, but I'm like, the timing of it, whenever it feels right, it's gonna come out like solito.
No pressure.
Yeah, because I also don't want, like, you know how when your videos go viral, then your stats take a shit and like your engagement. I'm like, I don't like going viral for that reason, because it messes with your community that you're building, because then it starts showing your stuff to
other communities. Yep. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like I'm glad it went viral and more people have awareness of what I was talking about, but that's one of the things I talk about. That's not all the things. Yeah. So it's like, let's reel it back in
back to reality, back to real life.
Yeah.
So in your healing journey from what you experienced and an unfortunate situation within your family, did you resolve any of the family dynamics? Was that able, like when you forgave your mom per se, like did that help your family dynamic, or did you really just bottle that in and really not make it a thing? Because I can't imagine being a 7-year-old little girl. Like I picture my daughter and I just like, I'm flooded with emotion. I cannot imagine.
It's so hard
dealing with that.
Because it's almost like she didn't understand how she went wrong. And that's the part that makes it hard. Like, how do you not see it?
Do you think it's because of the way that they grew up and what they knew, that it's like she really didn't have the tools to be able to help you?
Yeah. So it's like the empathy I have for her doesn't let me be angry or resentful. And I'm like, damn.
That's good for you though.
Yeah.
Because harboring hate or resentment.
It's not going to heal me to hate her or to hate him. It's me understanding all of the circumstances, and it's because I understand it that I was never like angry with her. It just hurt to hear like, well, at least he didn't rape you. And I'm just like, you know, like she was just trying to cope with it in her best way, but I was like, no.
I'm sure in her mind it had to have messed her up, because it's like, as a mother, no matter what, even though she didn't have the tools or give you the support that you needed.
Yeah.
I think that still, even as a mother, like you're just like, holy smokes. Like,
but
it's when you deal with your kids and they're having a tantrum, you're like, how do I deal with you today? Yeah. You know, like, do I yell at you, get on your level today? Do I punish you? Yeah. Like you're trying to figure it out all in the moment.
But you know what? It's habit too. So habit is so dangerous. The thing with my family is that they're so used to keeping things hush hush about whatever.
Like your family's still in that very vintage culture of being Mexican.
Like, I'm still gonna say hi to her, so it's not weird.
Yeah.
But this was the same bitch that was talking shit 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, why not just address it, clear the air? But no, it's like habit of turning the other way when it's like small stuff. Que cuando pasa algo serio, because of habit, they're like, no, I'm not going to touch it. And that's what I think creates dangerous breeding grounds for abuse. Cuando las familias son así de que no, ¿para qué? ¿Para qué le mueves? Like, it's fine, así son ellos. Así, like,
pero la cultura,
yeah.
no, la cultura no va a cambiar. It's not going to change. You're not going to change. You can't teach a old dog new tricks. You're not going to change that cultura. All we can do is moving forward and with the tools that you have and the tools that you've been given and all the things that you went through, unfortunately, to do better for the future. Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're not going to win.
No, and that's why it was important for me to talk to my grandma.
Yeah.
And explain to her, like, this is why I don't come around. Because I show up, imagínate, yo llevo una fiesta familiar, güey. And they're all used to covering for each other. And I show up and I don't cover for anyone. I'm going to mess with their vibe because I'm standing in my truth. Y nomás con estar ahí respirando. I'm
They're like,
fucking
aquí
with
está.
it. Yeah. Like, I'm not doing anything. Ni los estoy volteando a ver or whatever. And it's like, my sister will tell me, dude, the vibe changed as soon as you got here. I'm like, por eso me fui temprano, güey, para que no se agüite. Like,
pero no eres responsable.
I'm not, yeah.
Yeah, no eres responsable. But at the end of the day, again, it goes back to that same thing, is that they were conditioned a certain way, and you cannot teach an old dog new tricks. It is impossible.
And these are the same people that were like, nobody gives a fuck, Gabby. Like, why are you posting that? Like, no one cares.
Oh, se me sale, como que me quieren dar hives. Like we were saying that you feel like.
Por eso para mí, it's like the fact that I have a community behind me is I'm in awe with the universe. And I have not rushed to get here. I've gone at my own pace and I'm like, this story, it has to be out there for whoever needs it.
Yep.
They're going to be the first one to say, oh, she just wants attention.
Yep. That's how I feel about my testimony too. It's my story.
Yeah.
And it's going to serve somebody. And it's your story, and you get to share your story. Yeah. It's your story.
So I'm doing it for an earlier version of myself, and that's the only person I care about. Yeah. So if other people want to be like, why is she talking about that? She just wants attention. That's your projection.
Yeah.
That's not my responsibility.
No.
And the amount of people that need this story to be out outweighs whoever's talking shit. Trust me, in a heartbeat. Like, I do not care. And I've even said it, like, I have a dream of like going and getting Grammys for this work, you know?
And what a disservice it would be to God for you not to show how he brought you to this other side. What a disservice it would be.
Yeah. And it's
to the community of people.
Oh yeah. And it's crazy because people are not used to seeing, like, you know how they say like, oh, well, it's because loud people are dumb or things like that. Like, usually the dumbest people are the loudest. I'm like, no. Like, we could be loud too. That's the problem, that we share that narrative of like, you shouldn't be out here on social media saying whatever, like, mientras otra gente está with the mic, you know, like all the bro podcasts.
Or they quickly want to accuse you of like, oh, get over it.
Yes.
Or you're not over it. Or, oh, you want attention. Or, oh, you're this. Or, oh, you're... And it's like
I could care less. And I mean, at every single step of anything that I've done, there's always commentary. When I open posters, they're like, oh, she's going to leave her husband now. Excuse me? And the guy that said that, his wife left him a year later.
Ándale por andar de hocicón.
Yeah.
Ándale. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm just like, you were projecting.
Yeah.
And it's not my responsibility. So I think that's been the most liberating experience about not having to worry about, oh, le voy a ofender a tal persona. I changed the names in the book so they can't sue me. Like,
yeah.
Trust me. I'm good. Pero yo tengo paz en mi corazón that what I'm doing is going to heal not just me, but a bunch of other people. And I could see this becoming like an experience type of thing with the music. And like, could you imagine going to a place and like vibing with people that are there to like heal through it with you? And like, oh yeah, let's take a shot. But like,
I can just imagine the release of emotion. Because so many people carry so many things that we know nothing about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, my story is one version of it, right? And there's so many different levels of trauma and life person dynamics, family issues. Like, there's so many, and I know because I've seen them all, you know.
Did that experience make you hyper paranoid? Like, did it give you, like, what was some of your post trauma from that experience? Like, what are some of the things that you like dealt with? Did you deal with problems in like relationships, in your marriage, that stemmed from that trauma?
Well, the first thing that happens when you go through childhood trauma is that you realize you're no longer safe. When it's not what happened to you, is realizing that you're no longer safe. That's the moment where it like changes for you psychologically. Entonces that made me a hypervigilant person. I was always like watching my back, like tenía un corazón de pollo, like anything little sound, I'm like, ugh. Like right away me asustaba, and it breeded anxiety. I mean, by the time I was done with my first year in college, I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. I was always worried about pleasing other people because I was trying to solve their problems as a distraction from mine.
Because nobody cared about yours.
And I mean, to top it off, I'm the middle child of 3 girls. Like, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Like, no. And so I think that's why I also went into being a social worker.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, in the last year of my experience, even though I was working in hospice, there was a little girl in a similar situation where grandpa was the one that was doing inappropriate stuff, and the mom confessed it to me, and I had to call a CPS report. And I had to keep it together during the call and during the report. But after that, I was crying. I was crying uncontrollably for like 10 minutes at borderline anxiety attacks. I was like, I became the person that I needed, you know? Yeah. And this mom advocated for her daughter.
Yeah.
And so that was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, I am exactly where I'm supposed to be at.
I'm so proud of you.
I'm
so proud of you for getting to this place, because I know it's taken a lot of courage. I never experienced that, and I couldn't even fathom. Like I said, I think about my daughter.
Yeah.
And like, how do you protect them? It's like you can't protect them 24/7. But all you can do is promise that you'll be there for anything. But even then, it's like, I don't want that.
And it's like, we do our best to protect them, but there's hurt people out there walking around with anger and pain, and it's hard.
Yeah.
But I think too, it's what's ironic is that my mom would always tell me like, no, dejes que nadie te toque. It's like that was always in her mind, and I'm like, did she call that in? Was I receptive to it because I was naturally the unseen child, you know? Like, it makes me question a lot of things.
Yeah.
So then I'm like,
I say the same thing to my kid. Like, what do you do different now with your kid? You know, like, what do you?
I teach them about their bodies, but I'm not like terrorizing them with it. I'm like, you understand, like, this is what this is called. Like, I do it biologically, and then I tell them, this is not okay. This is like, they need to know what's not normal. And children can feel it.
No, they know. They know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when I shower my daughter and I tell her, oh, like, nobody's supposed to touch your private, you know, and she's like, well, you're showering me. And I'm like, okay, but I'm just going to shower you really fast. Do you want to do it? Like, it's up to you. She gets it. But then also too, like, it scares me for my sons too, you know, like.
Oh yeah, especially because boys experience it too. And
yeah.
If we don't talk about it, ellos menos.
Yeah.
The boys, and it's so much more like shameful for them to talk about it, and they grow up to become men. And I believe something like 30% of boys who have been assaulted go and become someone that assaults. So it's crazy. And I mean, I was doing research lately for a program that I was gonna I started a whole other company, but it's crazy how it was all connected, because it's a teen pregnancy prevention program that I was going to create and bring to Latinas and youth ages 12 to 18. But I did research on girls that have been sexually assaulted as children. There's a twofold on the likelihood of them being teen moms. So the risk is much greater for people who have experienced sexual assault to become young parents.
Wow.
And even though there's overwhelming research, there's no teen prevention programs that focus on sexual assault education and prevention. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, no se le está prendiendo el foco a la gente, you know? And so I created the company to apply for these government grants. And my goal is to bring these programs to Latina youth everywhere. Because what I do at Posters with the Empresaria workshop is education.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to teach girls how to advocate for themselves in the event that this happens. And so I didn't come across this grant until like 2 months ago. So I was like scrambling to put together a company, and like it was a hot mess. Like no se pudo hacer because the deadline was last week.
Yeah.
And we missed it by like 5 days. But I didn't see this thing until literally like end of February. And I was like, damn. But now I know that I can create another company. And I know like the people that are for the job, and I would be able to hire like friends of mine that I know that are in education to do these workshops for the girls and like truly make change happen. Because de aquí a que las leyes lo hagan. No.
You're here to serve.
Yeah, literally.
And I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Everything you do is for people. Mm-hmm. And I can see it. Yeah. Everything you do and everything that's happened in your life has been a catalyst to serving and to really helping our community.
Yeah.
And I know that with, how can I say this? With the greater platform you have and the more voice you have, the greater the responsibility. And I think that you're doing an incredible job with like sharing your story and having the bravery to do that. I think it takes so much courage to like come out and say some of the things that you said outwardly, because even then it takes a lot of healing to even get to that place.
Yeah. I mean, for
vocalize. For
me to be able to share it without like breaking apart, that takes a lot of practice. That takes a lot of healing. And I mean, writing about it, you know, it was hard because I had to relive it. I had to relive all those moments. And I'm like, let me get through this so that we could all heal together. That's why when I signed the book, I always put "May we heal together" and I send it off. And it's like, that's the message for everything that I do. And I know I'm in the right path because of how good these things feel and how easy they unfold. Like there's no resistance.
Yeah.
And so the music thing, you know how I told you people are like vibing with it? I'm like, that's so crazy.
Yeah. Glad you guys love it.
I know. I'm like, and it's a song that's a little more angry. It's like chinguentos a su madre, basically. But
people love that, girl.
Yeah.
Give me a beer and some chingue su madre, and that sounds good to me.
Yeah, but it's like the goal would be like if you came across this song, naturally you're gonna go curiously looking at what else is there, and then you're gonna come across other songs that are gonna help you heal through that anger, which is like, I'm gonna scam you into having healing.
Hey, everybody's gonna be healing at the same time. Like, everybody's at home crying, like in their closet, rocking back and forth. Why are you crying? It's Gabby. Thanks to her.
That's the goal.
That's the motive. Yeah. I think that's the same reason I am doing this. The same reason to sit down and like just have conversations that need to be had. Yeah, and like. Just share that there's people with the same story or the same type of story, and that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having this platform and sharing it with me and trusting me with your audience. I'm always very mindful of that. And I hope that, you know, our time together here helped other people gain perspective and believe in themselves a little bit more.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. So if you could leave with some last words of anything positive vibe, what would it be? What are words Gabby lives by, like positive vibes?
Honestly, be delusional.
That is your favorite. I'm like, girl, I gotta talk to you about that because there's some people that should not be delusional. No. I know
5150. Yeah,
they're like somebody that fathered my children or something should not be delusional.
So delusion for me means just having the audacity to believe in yourself.
Okay.
Right? That's different.
Okay, let's say that. Yeah.
So if I can literally do what I've done today and I have no common sense, girl, that's the one thing God didn't bless me with.
Girl, same.
I don't know what
I have no situational awareness, girl.
We can't have it all. God said, let me humble you down right here. Yeah. And so, honestly, like, what is it going to be? What is it going to take for you to do and go after your wildest dreams? Just que pierdan la vergüenza.
Yeah.
Sé sin vergüenza, but in the best way possible.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Like, stop worrying about what other people are going to say.
Que te valga, dale vuelo la hilacha y vive tu vida.
Eso. Eso. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that is a good way to end. I really appreciate you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to drive to bring me postres.
Yes.
Some postres. If you guys are ever in Bellflower, stop by Postres. It's delicious. 10 out of 10.
Thank you.
I stop by every time. And I'm just really thankful again for you being here, for you being very open and for giving me the opportunity to sit down with you. It's always a pleasure, and I'm just so thankful, and I hope your platform continues to grow, and I hope that we can find other ways to serve our community together. Yes. I'll be more than happy to always have your back.
Yes, likewise. Thank you so much.
Period. Bye, guys. Thank you for being here. We will catch you guys at next time's podcast.